Hi, Stacey. Welcome to the Joy of Being You podcast. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to have a chance to sit down and talk to you.
I am excited as well. Could you please introduce yourself and share your story with the audience? What was the major challenge you had in the past that shaped you to be the person you are today?
Oh, I've had many. So let's start with the introduction. So my name is Stacey Stevens. I live in Ontario, Canada. I am a practicing lawyer, or as you call it in the States, an attorney. I'm also an award-winning inspirational speaker and a published author. My story begins, probably when I was about 15 years old. I made the decision to leave home. I had a really good family. I want to stress that because that's really, when I tell people that I left home, a lot of times they think automatically it was, poverty, abuse, alcoholism, all of that stuff. My home life was really, really good. The problem is I fell in with someone who was extremely manipulative, and he saw my insecurities and he used me for that and ultimately ended up convincing me that I would be better off living with him as opposed to my family. And I listened and I fell for it, and I made the decision to move out when I was 15 years old. That was really the event that started me on my journey. I remember the night before I left, my dad said to me in no uncertain terms, if you walk out that door, you will be nothing. You'll be absolutely nothing. And I looked at him and I said back to him, basically, screw you, Dad. I'll show you. I'm going to be a lawyer. And so when I left the next day, a couple of garbage bags full of clothes and no real idea about what type of a world I was going into, that was the only other thing that I took with me, right? Was this, what we'll call a promise that I made to my dad.
So what happened after? 15 years old, I can't even imagine making that decision. And you said that wasn't because anything that happened at home. You had a good family life. Obviously, your parents were upset. What happened next?
Well, I ended up moving in with the person that I fell in with and his family. And, the irony of it is that I ended up into house with alcoholism, abuse, anger, all of that stuff. And it was really, really hard. I continued going to school because that was the one thing that I knew I had to do in order to sort of stay on the straight and narrow. I found a job. I had to work. I had no money. I had to support myself. And eventually I found my own place to live. But, throughout what we'll call the most formative years of my life, right, I spent that as a time where I had no allies, right? I had no one in my corner. I had no parents. I had no supportive circle for about 4 years, actually, before I ended up.
Wow. So 15 to 19?
15 to 19. And it was really, really tough because you have to understand that when I left, I was just a 15-year-old girl and I was absolutely terrified on the inside. But on the outside, I had to put on this persona of being strong and tough. And, I can handle it and I can take whatever comes my way. And so in those 4 years, I experienced a lot of challenges and a lot of situations that most kids my age never would have found themselves in. And it ended up really shaping me because, how do I put this? I became someone who lived small, right? I hid in plain sight. I didn't want to be seen. I didn't want to have attention on me because that's how I felt I would be safer, as opposed to, being that person that, was argumentative, that didn't comply, that didn't do what she was told. I didn't want to be that person because I knew that was the type of person that would get me in trouble. So I had to really hide who I was and try to be as inconspicuous as possible, which in later years, sort of as life goes on, I started to really understand the impact that this had on me and how it shaped me for who I was, right? Like I said, I was scared, I was alone, I was lost. And at times I was hopeless because during those 4 years, I couldn't see my way out. I didn't think I could go back. I was wrong. Obviously, I could have, but I didn't think I could go back. And I was with someone who convinced me that even if I went back, my family wouldn't want me. If I left him, no one else would want me. No one
Oh,
else would
wow.
love me. So I really had to live a life of compliance, to say
Yeah.
the least. Yeah, it was tough. And I saw things and I lived through things that a lot of it I don't remember, but I know that there were times where I was lucky to get out of the situation I was in just to be able to, get back home and be safe.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it
So
was
how long were you in this relationship for?
um about 4 years.
4 years?
Yeah, it was about 4 years, and I remember, things kept getting progressively worse as time went on. Right in the beginning, everything seemed lovely. Was still nice and kind and caring. Um, but very quickly that started to change
Mhm.
into someone who was possessive, controlling, dominant. He got
Yeah.
in between me and my family and alienated me from them and
Yeah.
made me believe that there was nothing back there for me to go to, that he was the savior, right? That he was the only one who was there for me, when in reality, he wasn't. He wasn't
Oh
at all.
gosh. That's so horrible. I'm so sorry that you had to go through that.
Yeah, it was life changing for me. Things did turn around for me. I never wanted to be seen as the victim.
Mhm.
I didn't want to come back to a family that then treated me like, oh, poor Stacy, Stacy's back, but let's, be careful. Let's treat her with kid gloves. I didn't want that. So I took it upon myself to really start trying to understand the lessons that I could
Mm.
take from those experiences that I had and from that decision that I made and move forward with my life. I didn't want to be the victim. I didn't want to be the person who now sat there and wallowed in my misery, so to speak. What I really wanted to do was to continue on my path, because my ultimate goal was still to become a lawyer. I graduated high school. I
Mm.
just couldn't do anything after that because I didn't have the resources. Well,
I see.
yeah,
So you leave home because of a relationship when you're 15 years old. That relationship goes for another 4 years and 19. And if I understood you correctly, you said that you moved back after the relationship was done.
yes,
And you finished high school, but you had to get a job. You had to take care of yourself,
yeah,
and you didn't have the resources to take the next steps in your life. You also mentioned that during that time, you started hiding. You felt that it wasn't safe for you to be you, and then you said that when you were 19 and you moved back, you didn't look at your life as you were a victim. So all of that, what you said, it sounds like that you're already an adult but you're still just 19 years old. And the reason why I repeated that because this is literally what hit me while you were speaking. Because at 19 years old, I didn't really think about not wanting to be a victim. Like I didn't even really understood that I felt like a victim, and I was, but also that I lived my life being a victim, right, for a
yeah.
very long time. So just that, how did you come to that understanding so early?
I think that after a couple of years, probably after about a couple of years of being away from home, and I started to realize that this was really a bad situation for me to be in. I did have friends. I had a couple of really supportive girlfriends, um, and some other people in my life sort of in the tail end, who became very protective of me
Hmm.
and were really there to help support me. But in the end, I felt like a victim, and I didn't like the way it made me feel.
How did that make you feel?
I felt worthless. I felt that I carried the blame for everything that had happened. I put it on me, right? I made the decision to leave. I didn't hold anybody else accountable for that decision. I took that responsibility on me. And there were times when I was a victim. I'm not going to lie and say that everything was, sunshine and roses. There were times where
Of
there was
course.
abuse. Right? There was physical abuse, there was psychological abuse. And I was that way. And the whole time, when I think back when I was going through it, I betrayed myself a lot of the time, right? By
Hmm.
not being that strong person who could make my own decisions, who could, you know, sort of guide the outcome of where I want it to be. My outcome
Mm.
every single day of my life while I was not living at home was controlled by somebody else,
Mm.
right? So I've been the victim already for 4 years. And when I got
Hmm.
home, the way I remember it is that, my family took me back in and life moved on, right? We sort of just picked up our pieces and we moved on. And so now I'm back in, an intact family. And I didn't want to bring that baggage with me back to them. But when I had left, it was bad at home. There was a lot of fighting. There was a lot of arguing. My parents knew this person was a terrible guy. And it
Mm,
didn't matter what they said. It didn't matter what they did. I didn't see it. So there was a lot of arguing and a lot of fighting in the house. And I had two younger sisters. So when I came back, I felt they're very responsible for the experiences that they had while I was living at home. And so when I came back after I had left, I didn't want to bring all of that baggage back with me. In my
mm.
mind, I had made the decision to leave. And actually, the night before I left, he tried to kill me, to be honest. Like
He did?
yes, he did. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, you mean when you left the relationship, not when you left
Yeah.
your family? Okay,
Oh,
okay.
oh
My
gosh. No,
goodness.
no, no.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, no, no. Not when I left my family, but when I left the relationship, it had gotten to
Wow.
the point where, he was extremely threatening and he tried to kill me. He tried to strangle me.
Oh my
And,
goodness.
it was the middle of summer. And I remember, waking up the next morning with bruises on my neck. And, my friend that I had at the time that I was living with, she was like, I'm sorry, but why are you wearing a turtleneck? It's the middle of summer. And I didn't want to show her. I felt terrible. I felt embarrassed and I felt that I had brought all this on myself.
Mm,
And it was shortly after that, like I escaped. I took off. It was a typical midnight move.
wow.
Right. And I think part of it too is that I carried that sort of that brave, tough Stacey that I had to be for all of those years. I brought her
Mhm.
back home with me. So when I got home, I was brave, tough Stacey still.
Yeah, and I almost feel like when somebody takes your power away, and the way that you can gain control is taking control, right?
Yeah.
So then you go into going from powerless to overly powerful, right? That's why we become really, really controlling, right?
Yeah.
So those are the two kind of um ends of the spectrum of that energy, and like it's either I have no power or I have all the power.
Exactly.
It's not. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So wow, that's
Yeah.
really, really interesting. So then what happened after? um
So
you said that you had more resources, you got your family's support.
yeah.
And how did you get through this time? So you took control. You said, "I'm not a victim. I'm just going to do what I've decided to do, which is I'm going to finish law school." And how did you shift your mindset? And what happened next? Your
So it took
journey.
a while. It did take a while for me to get to law school. Once I moved back home, like I said, I started working in a law firm. Actually, I figured, you know what? If I'm going to be a lawyer someday, who knows when? If I can
Mm-hmm.
start here, at least I'm on the right path. So I was working at a law firm as a receptionist, became a legal secretary. I got married, and I had a couple of kids. And life was generally okay. Still with someone who was, I don't want to say dominant and controlling, but certainly um, kept me isolated from my family.
Interesting. That's a pattern for you.
You know what? It was a pattern for me. Um, so, like I said, I had my boys, I worked, I was a legal secretary, I went to night school, I became a paralegal, I had my own business for a while. So that was 19 to 20. I was 36 years old. It took me another 16 years to finally make the decision to apply to law school.
Wow.
Yeah. And I did. And I got in. So I was a 37-year-old law student without an undergraduate degree,
Amazing.
only a high school diploma in my pocket, and that's it. And I went through 3 years of law school, and I did really well. All things considered, I was commuting 2 hours a day, going to school for 6 to 8 hours. My boys were 10 and 15 when I started. So I would come home, I managed my family, I took care of what I needed to at the house, did my studies, and then got up the next day and started all over again. But,
Wow.
you know, there's another side to that story that I've only really come to realize now is that we talked a little bit about the patterns and the conditioning that I had experienced when I had first moved out when I was younger. And what I realized in hindsight is that I took a lot of those patterns and conditioning with me throughout the years. So even during the time that I was married, I was still a people pleaser.
Mm.
I was still struggling horribly with imposter syndrome. I was still um, compliant. I'd rather keep the peace, right, than have a negative situation at home. All of the experiences that I had as a teenager, they stayed with me, right? So I wouldn't fight back.
Mhm.
You know, I did what I had to do. I bit my tongue, and I just made sure that as long as everybody else around me was happy, then
You were
everything
safe.
was okay. Then I was safe.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's
I had the same belief. I wonder because you said that you didn't learn this in your childhood. But if it wasn't coming from your childhood, is it some, I don't know, some collective conditioning for women? I always felt most of my life that I um I was underplaying myself.
yes, and I think that's part of the societal programming, right? We have our
Mhm.
families, we have the conditioning that we get, and by no means is it an insult to our parents, right? Because they do the best they can with what they have. And I can't really speak to my mom's upbringing, but I know she is also a very strong, independent woman. Uh,
Mhm.
but yeah, I had the good girl script growing up,
Mhm.
right? Don't talk back, don't argue, play nice, always look pretty, don't get your dress dirty, all of that stuff. And somewhere in there, I learned to be afraid of getting in trouble. I think somewhere inherently, I was just always meant to be a people pleaser
Yeah, I mean, I
and
can
not.
imagine after going through that traumatic experience with your ex-boyfriend that could have been one of those other conditioning or something that you learned that, oh, if you step out and if you go kind of free or do you do something unconventional, then things could turn bad, you know.
Things,
So that could
yeah,
be a way to protect yourself. Yeah.
absolutely. You know what? Absolutely. And then so I carried that with me even in my young adult years, right? Even back
Mm,
to like now I'm safe, right? I'm at home, I'm with my family. Eventually I get married, I've got a job. My environment is one of safety at this point,
mm-hmm.
but I didn't realize it. Not on the inside.
No.
I was still living very much in survival mode, which
Yeah.
was, like I said, keep the peace. Let's not argue, right? Don't rock the boat. Just make sure everybody around me is happy and everything will be okay.
Do you think that after that experience when you left, you actually became more of this person who wanted to please other people, maybe out of like feeling guilty or feeling responsible? Because if you know when you talked about it, you really you said it that you felt responsible and like this was your decision. Nobody pushed you into doing anything. You didn't look at yourself as a victim, but also kind of being that responsible person. What is the driving force of that responsibility? And then there are other emotions present at the same time. And is it possible that that was maybe guilt,
Oh,
um, shame?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Guilt, shame, embarrassment.
Hmm.
Um, and a lot of that, I think, fed into the imposter syndrome
Of
because,
course.
on one hand, you've got, I'm still tough Stacy who's going to I'm going to get through anything that gets in my way. I'm going to push my way through it and succeed.
Hmm.
But on the inside, right, is the guilt, the shame, um, the embarrassment.
Hmm.
I'm telling people one day I'm going to be a lawyer. And they're like,
Hmm.
well, why aren't you a lawyer now? Well, because, I'm a teenage runaway
Hmm.
and I had a really crummy life for 4 years. But now I'm back and it's okay. It's okay. You don't have to worry about that because I'm fine. So it was this armor almost that I had put on, this
Hmm. Hmm.
shield that I carried with me where I just buried everything
Hmm.
deep inside and just continued to push through. Even when I was going to law school, right? People would say to me, well, like, how did you get by? How did you do this? And,
Yeah.
if I
With a
could borrow
family, 2 kids, yeah.
with a family and two kids, but it was what I said I was going to do the day I walked out that door. And
Mm.
there was no way I was going to let anybody stop me. And so even then, to draw the analogy, I was like, the racehorse with the blinders on,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
That's all I could see.
Yeah,
It's just the
and it served you because you're a lawyer. right?
It did.
So that's really interesting. That part is really interesting about our survival instinct. You know, that certain things serve us until they don't, you know?
Yeah.
So the things that help us to achieve something in our lives are actually also the things that could hold us back at the same time in another
Hmm.
part of our lives. So I'm just curious, um, going off of this exchange, when did you recognize that this was a behavior or belief or the way that you showed up actually blocked you from and what did it block you from actually? You know, but did it block you from being happy? Did it block you from success? Like when did you come to that understanding that something needs to change because this behavior, it might have served me, but now it doesn't.
Yeah. It was about, I would say about 10 years ago. It was about 10
Wow.
years ago. Yeah. Um,
So how did you come to this, I guess, awakening?
I'd left my husband. We were now separated, and I felt like I was finally stepping into the life that I was supposed to have. And I'd met a new partner, wonderful guy, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful guy. And as good as that relationship was, I didn't feel any different. I was still feeling um, like the imposter. I was still feeling that part of me was still trapped, that I think I was still in many ways still living in survival mode. And
Mhm.
I found myself at a bit of a crossroads where, I'm not happy in my relationship, but I had no reason not to be. And I started reflecting back on all of the things that I had changed. I'd left my husband. I'd moved to a new place. I had a great job. I was a partner. I am a partner at my law firm. I have, two wonderful kids who are now adults. Everything around me had changed except for me.
Mm.
And that's when it dawned on me. I was like, wait a minute. I've spent, from the age of 19 to the age of 49, 50, living this persona that was built on so many different identities, right? I was Stacy, the girl. I was the good girl. I was Stacy, the survivor. The teenage runaway. Then I was Stacy, the triumphant. I was like the triumphant daughter who has come back from some long lost adventure. And then I fell into the role of Stacy, the wife, and Stacy, the mother, and then Stacy, the lawyer. And when I became a lawyer, the profession of law is very male dominant and it's
Mhm.
very, very traditional. And so there's an expectation that women will just assume these masculine traits and this masculine energy.
Mhm.
And so I had done that. I had had all of these different identities that I
Mhm.
just kept layering on top of each other. And then I got to the point where I realized I hadn't done anything to change me. I just kept putting band-aid over band-aid over band-aid. And it was at that point I thought to myself, you know what? I have to fix this because if I don't fix me, then I will spend the rest of my life this way. I
Mhm.
knew it, I knew in my heart it was my now or never moment. And so I went on the very difficult journey of unpacking everything that I had buried inside of me. I had a really great therapist. I certainly didn't I certainly didn't do this on my own, but I worked
Mhm.
with a really, really amazing therapist, and she really helped me see the patterns that I had been rolling over and over and over, but just at different stages in life. Right? It was
Mhm.
still the same. I was still that scared 15-year-old girl trying to portray myself as something I wasn't.
Do you mind sharing what that persona looked like? That
Um,
persona, that somebody that you're not? And who are you, really? What did you
who I
find out after doing all the work?
did I find out, it was a combination of things, right? There was the good part, the strong, determined, outer confidence that people could see.
Mhm.
But on the inside, there was sadness, depression, loneliness, anxiety, panic attacks, negative self worth, negative self talk. It was just a whole mess in here where I didn't think I deserved to be where I was. I
Mhm.
didn't think that I belonged, right? How is it someone who caused so much hurt to her family, right? Who lived for 4 years as a young girl, right? In a horrible, toxic environment to, someone then who then comes back and life gets kind of stable, right? But I still made a poor choice ultimately in the end for a husband. No undergraduate degree. And all of a sudden I'm here. I'm a lawyer. I'm a partner at a law firm. But there was another side
Mhm.
of me that just didn't believe that that's where I deserved to be. And so being
Mm.
able to pull myself out of that, like I said, with the help of my therapist and with just a lot of work on personal growth. When I got back home, one of the things I turned to was Tony Robbins. He had just come out around that time, he had just started to get famous. So this would have been, I can't remember what year it would have been, early-ish 80s or so. And, he was just getting famous. And one of my friends that I had gave me, and I still have it, the 24 cassette tape, personal power
Oh,
program.
wow.
And, I
That's great.
listened to
He
that.
was my first one too, Tony Tony Robbins.
Love, love, love him. So fast forward to about 10 years ago, that's when I started, going back to my roots, as I say. And I started listening more to what Tony Robbins was talking about. And I started building off that, listening to people like Brene Brown, Mel Robbins, Ed Milet, Tom Bilyeu, his wife, Lisa Bilyeu. Like there's just a whole host of so many amazing
Mhm.
personal development people out there and available through YouTube. So I worked with a lot of that combined with the work that I was doing with my therapist. And what I was able to do was really take apart all of these identities that I had. I picked the best parts of them and I kept them and I put them all
Mhm.
together. And I learned to rewrite my story from being someone who, and as much as I said at the beginning that I didn't want to be the victim, I made myself the victim. I carried the blame and I carried the
Mhm.
responsibility
Mhm.
when in reality, I was a 15-year-old girl.
Mhm.
And there were other people in my life who should have done more for me. My family did as much as they could, right? But there were other
Mhm.
people there. There are other people in my life who older, wiser, and I'm not saying they should have taken responsibility for me by any sense, but what I learned in all of this was that I was just a 15-year-old girl.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
made the decisions that I made without really
Really
having the proper,
understanding.
yeah, the understanding or the experience to do it.
Yeah.
So once I started understanding that nobody on the outside was looking at me the way I thought they were, or the way I was looking at myself
Mm.
on the
Mhm.
inside. And once I learned how to rewrite my story, I became so much more self aware about the patterns that I had carried with me all these years.
Mhm.
And from there, I learned to interrupt the patterns. So I
Mhm.
started I'll stick with people pleasing because that's one of my big ones. Um, when I caught myself people pleasing, sacrificing what I wanted or what I needed, I was like, what just happened there? Gave myself some grace, right? But I sat with it. Instead of just shutting it down and pushing it away from me, I sat with it and I let that feeling sink in. And as you know, right, change your state. And I really let the horrible feeling of being a people pleaser sink in. And I
Mhm.
didn't like it. Like I really didn't like it. Actually, like I was paying attention to what was going on. And I learned to rewrite the narrative. I learned to plan, next time this happens, right? This is what
Shift
I'll
your
do next.
behavior. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I learned
Mhm.
from, it was actually, I think it was Viktor Frankl, an old psychiatrist who was one of these survivors from Auschwitz back in the war. And he said that, our thoughts trigger our emotions and our emotions trigger our actions. And if you can get into that small gap between your thought and your emotion, you can change what your outcome is going to be. So I
Mhm.
started taking a lot of time realizing that when a certain event happened and it triggered me to feel the need to be people pleasing, right? That emotion that came out. Well, if I do this, you'll like me. If I do this, I'll have more worth. If I do this, I'll be more value. or I'll get validation from you. I learned to sort of get into that gap and realize that just because I'm doing what you want me to do and putting aside what my wants and my needs are, that's not what's really good for me. Because this is
Yeah,
the
and the funny thing is that
triggers.
people when we think that our worth and value depends on what we do for other people, they usually actually don't even value it.
No, you know what?
That's
Really
really the
don't.
irony because I know it because can I say that I'm like a former people pleaser? No, I mean, I still have people pleasing qualities. I think that I will always have it, but I think that just like you, I catch myself and I know, like, I understand my boundaries a little bit more. And I assume that you do also understand your boundaries and you recognize when you would move into that direction, you stop yourself and you do something different. So I completely I completely get that. I wanted to kind of circle back because before you started sharing about your story of transformation, from the time you started therapy, you said that you were going through a really, really hard time for 10 years. Why was it hard? Why
Um,
was it hard, this transformational period where you were going to, and I just kind of want to repeat that you were going to therapy, you realized that, you are the only person who hasn't changed, your environment changed,
mhm,
and you kind of woke up to, like, who am I in this story? Who am I in my own story? And you
yeah.
started working on that. What made those 10 years so hard? And I think that it's really important for people to understand because people who are in they are going through their transformation. Everybody thinks that it just gets easy quickly. And I don't think that's what it doesn't happen so quickly. It takes a while and it comes with some pain. But what was painful for you?
When I first moved out on my own, I was free, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had this liberating freedom. I lived by myself. I could go where I wanted to go. I could do what I wanted to do. I could talk to whoever I wanted to. And it was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And then that wore off really quickly, right? Life sort of settled into a routine where I'm working. I have my support circle. I have my friends. I'm back at the gym. I'm doing all of the stuff that I wanted to be able to do.
Mm-hmm.
But it was the time when I was by myself and I would sort of let the thoughts come back because I was always very good at suppressing my emotions,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I couldn't show emotion. I couldn't show fear. I couldn't show anger. I couldn't show that I was upset. And I became afraid to even show that I was happy because every time I was happy about something, something would take it away from me. So
Mm-hmm.
now that I had moved out and I'm on my own, it was in those quietest moments, right? When our mind starts processing and all of these old emotions would start bubbling up, push them back, keep busy. As long as I kept busy and I kept moving and I kept my mind occupied, I didn't have to deal with this Pandora's box of emotions that was still there. In my mind, all I had to do was, leave my marriage and be on my own.
And everything's gonna be fine.
Everything's going to be fine.
Mhm,
And I fought with that for a long time, right?
mhm,
Because, like I said, the emotions would come up. I'm like, no, that's not me. I don't know who she is. I don't cry. I'm not afraid. I'm going to go out and do, and I'm going to tackle the world, and this is going to be it. Because now I'm where I was supposed to be. That's all it was. So, and I think back to the question, what you were saying about other people who sort of make a major change. We change our external environment. That's all I did.
mhm,
All I did was change my external environment. I didn't take the time that I should have taken to do the work on the inside.
mhm,
And so even when I'm, a practicing lawyer, I'm still bringing all of these people pleasing, lack of boundaries. I'm still bringing all of that stuff with me. And now I'm in an
mhm,
environment where, people are coming to me with their problems. I can fix this. I can do this. I can fix you, right? I can fix your problems. I don't
mhm,
have to think about mine. I don't have to think about
mhm,
who I really am. And I really honestly felt that there was a big part of me missing. And
mhm.
that's when I realized that either I have to do this now or I'm never going to do it. So I took the leap and Very happy I did.
So it has taken you about 10 years to kinda go through that full
Yeah.
inner transformation.
Yeah. About 10 years.
It's really interesting what you said that you changed your environment, but you didn't change anything inside.
Yeah.
And something just didn't work, and then you had to go within, and to create a different environment around you.
Yeah. That's exactly what it was. I did the opposite. And, when I got to that point where I was sort of
Yeah.
looking around thinking, like, why? Why is it everything else in my life has changed, but I still feel the same? And I'm, when I think back, I think I
Mhm.
had been at
Mhm.
that exact same
Interesting.
spot from time to time, but I never felt that I was ready to start unpacking everything. And like I said, I'm with a great partner.
Mhm.
We have a great life. He's extremely supportive of everything that I want to do with myself going forward. Um, it's everything that I could have ever hoped for. And I didn't want to lose that. But on the same hand, I still didn't feel, I want to use the word whole. And I just knew, right? We have instinct. We, we
Mhm.
know ourselves so well. I developed this level of insight over the years. I like to say that I do very good at living inside of my own head and sort of
Mhm.
replaying and reliving and analyzing and looking at all sides of things. And I think that's kind of where I got to, and I decided that, yeah, I blew up my life, but I didn't blow up myself. And I
Mm.
still carried a lot of
Wow.
those traits. Yeah. And it's still a work in progress by no means, you know,
Oh, yeah. I
is
think that when you start this work, you never stop.
no, you never stop. But if I could sum it up, I've gotten to the point where other people's opinion of who I am, of what my worth and what my value is, it doesn't matter to me anymore. The
I
other
love it.
people's opinions, they don't impact how I move about in my own world.
I love it. And how did that change? I feel like that's really and deep down in like a core shift that you have gone through. The person who was people pleasing to make other people happy to feel safe said that, okay, I don't really care about other people's opinion anymore. And I still feel safe. I'm okay. Like, I'm okay the way I am. So, how did that change your environment and then the way you felt in your life?
Once I reached that realization, everything
Hmm.
changed. Everything
How?
changed for me. Um, the confidence that I have didn't feel fake. It didn't feel
Hmm.
forced. Um, I stopped being afraid of being able to say what I wanted to say. I can say what
Hmm.
I mean. I mean what I say without being mean.
Hmm.
Right. Whereas I was always, guarded, withheld what I really wanted to say, didn't want to speak up out of fear of being wrong, out of fear of bringing attention to me. It
Hmm.
showed me that I can be happy just with who I am. And it
Hmm.
taught me to let go of the self judgment because I was probably my harshest critic. And it
Hmm.
taught me to realize that my worth and my value comes from inside. It doesn't
Hmm.
come from what I can do for you, what I can get for you, who I can be for you. It all comes from me.
Yeah, so what I heard you say, it's more confident, more authentic because now you're yourself. You're
Yeah.
not holding it back. More free.
Yeah.
I assume more relaxed because when there's a lot of tension, I feel a lot of tension when you hold back, when you don't say what you feel, and that it's just like things built up inside of you. So when you say things out, it's just like you're more in the flow, on your own flow. How did it change your work relationships in general? How did your inner shift change your environment?
In terms of work, um, it made me realize that it's not that I was burnt out from my job. It made
Mhm.
me realize that the fatigue and the stress, and I'd even call it the disillusionment of being a lawyer, um, it took that away, and it made me realize that this is a systemic problem within the legal profession. And what I mean by that
Mhm.
is I work with a lot of law students. I interview a lot of law students for positions at our firm every year. And what I hear from the women is we're told we have to work harder than the guys. We're told we
Mhm.
have to expect to be passed over. We're told we shouldn't um, count on getting the best cases that the guys are going to, the men are going to gravitate towards the men. We're told that,
That's horrible.
but
It's so
it's
bad.
true, right? But
Yeah.
it's so
Yeah.
true. And even,
Mhm.
there were studies that came out a couple of years ago and across North America, it's supported in Canada and in the States that even though more than 50% of the graduating class are women from law school, 30% are leaving after 5 to 7 years because of burnout, anxiety, and depression. And the
Yeah.
ones who were interviewed in these studies, a lot of it came down to the pressure and the demands of the job and the belief that you have to make yourself available 24/7, that your validation comes from, what does a senior partner think about your work? What does the judge
Mhm.
think about your work? And it's an environment where competition, criticism, judgment, those are the three main things that happen, right? When you come
Mhm.
out of law school, you're competing with other law students for very few jobs. The level of criticism that young lawyers face from senior lawyers, from judges on the bench, it's harsh and it can be soul crushing. I've seen it happen. So now
Mhm.
what I've become, what this has all sort of brought me to do is I'm becoming a lot more vocal about that and a lot more vocal about the impact that the legal profession has on young women and mid-level lawyers, even senior level lawyers who are at their stage in the career similar to mine.
Mhm.
It runs rampant and law is so traditional and so um, patriarchal still.
Mhm.
No matter how
Mhm.
many policies and procedures that we put into place, equity, diversity, all of that stuff that we talk about and we strive to have, it's there, but it only scratches the surface.
Oh, yeah, 100%. So you think that basically that inner transformation that you had, that gave you the confidence to really realize, the challenges of being a lawyer and being a
Mhm.
female lawyer, and now you're using your voice to speak up.
Yep, exactly, exactly. And I don't want to
Mhm.
say that, as women, we have to change who we are to succeed in this profession. The profession, and really, this applies to any high achieving woman, any woman, whether it's finance, STEM, um, you know, pharmaceutical, medical, all of these very male traditional professions.
Mm,
It's not that we have to
yeah.
change who we are, but I think what we need to do coming into it is we need to reassess our values and our beliefs because a lot of our values and beliefs are given to us by our parents, our peer group, our teachers. We get these
Right.
values and beliefs at a young age. And we just like I did with my identity shifts throughout the years, we just keep building on them. And I firmly believe that there comes a time when we have to reassess what our values and beliefs are, how
Mhm.
we got them, and do they still serve us?
Mhm. Yeah.
And if they're not serving us,
100%.
right, if they're not serving us to get us to the place where we want to be, then we have to change them and we have to adopt
Yeah.
them and, sort of massage them and turn them into values and beliefs that support the women that we are now.
And the life that we want to live as well.
Absolutely. And the life that we want to live. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm curious, do you feel that since you went through this transformation, you're able to face the challenges that you're facing at work differently? A little bit maybe with more ease, more comfort. Like how do you go through the challenges now?
Um, I have to say my firm is really good. When I first
Mhm.
started there, almost 20 years ago, when I first started there was a typical downtown Toronto law firm, a lot of, established men at the top, not a lot of women. But over the past 20 years, we are now, I think we're 25% women, 75% men. And that it's getting higher. At the part
Mhm.
table, there's 11 women now, I think, as opposed to when I started
Mhm.
when there was only one. So, no, it's not so much challenges specifically at work, but there have been a lot of challenges over the years that I've dealt with outside of the firm, when dealing with
Mhm.
other male lawyers, um,
Mhm.
clients, judges. And it has definitely made me more confident in who I am and confident
Mhm.
in my authority and what I bring to the
Mhm.
table. Um, I don't bring to the table what most lawyers bring. I bring a world and a life of experiences that most people have never had. And I don't
Mhm.
see that as a downfall anymore. I don't see that as
That's
something I need
beautiful.
to be ashamed of and to hide. I
Mhm.
see that
It's
now as
actually
that's,
serving you.
yeah, it serves me. It's what makes me me, and it makes me
Mhm.
better able to deal with my clients.
Mhm. That's awesome. That's awesome. I love it. So
Thank you.
what are you the most proud of about your journey?
My journey took me through a number of different times in my life, but it all culminated in being able to show my boys what it takes to succeed against all odds. And,
Mm.
as a mom, as a parent, and I remember even when I was growing up, I would listen to my parents say, when I was your age and blah, 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 and I did this, or, you need to have a plan and you need to work hard and you need to, you know, stay on the straight and narrow. All of these things that we say, my kids got to see me live it. I remember when I
Mhm.
went to law school, they were 10 and 15. So they saw and they lived every day of that with me, of getting up, going to school,
Grinding.
coming home and
Mhm.
studying. And now they're adults. They're very successful. One of them owns, both of them only have high school educations. They followed their mother's footsteps. They didn't go to post secondary school. One of them is a crane operator. So he's in construction, builds massive skyscrapers, um, very successful in his own right. And the other one owns a very large grocery store and manages a very successful business. So, you know what? At the end of the day, I never look back with regret. I've never
Mhm.
looked back and said, you know what? I wish this never happened, because if
Mhm.
none of this happened to me, I wouldn't be who I am today and my boys wouldn't be who they are today.
Mm.
And so at the end of the day, it was all worthwhile. And to be honest with you, the fact that I'm now in a place where I can take what I've learned and I can share that with other young women who are coming behind me and have an
Mhm.
impact and make a difference in the way they're now approaching their lives. To me, that's all that matters now.
Amazing.
That's really all
Mhm.
that matters.
That's awesome. That's beautiful. So, at the end of the podcast, I always ask 3 questions from my guests. So I'm going to ask you those 3 questions. The
Yep.
first one is, what advice would you give to your past self who was struggling?
Mm, just hang on. It will
Mhm.
get better. Never
Mhm.
lose sight. Never, ever lose sight of your ultimate goal and where you want to go. It may not be an easy road,
Mm.
and you're going to take one step at a time, and then you're going to take another. But eventually,
Mhm.
you'll get there.
What is the biggest lesson you learned on your journey?
Wow, that's a hard one.
What is the first thing that comes to you?
Trust yourself.
Mhm.
I think that was my biggest lesson that I learned. That's the first thing that pops into my head, is that trust yourself. Trust
Mhm.
yourself to know that you're good enough. Trust yourself to be vulnerable. Trust yourself to have emotions, and trust yourself to know that you'll figure it out.
Mhm.
So
Trust yourself. What advice would you share with someone who is going through similar challenges right now?
every day will seem like it's insurmountable. Every day you will get up and you will second guess the journey that you've started on. Every time it feels hard, just say, okay, I've gotten through today. I'll do it again tomorrow. And even on the days where you fail, and you will fail because it's just natural, promise yourself you will get up the next day, you will dust yourself off, and you will take it one more day, because eventually you get to the other side. And once you get,
Mhm.
you'll wonder why you took so long.
Mhm. Yeah. True. It's very true. Thank you so much, Stacey. Thank you. Thank you for all your wisdom and sharing your story. Do you have a maybe one last thought, insight that you want to share with the listeners?
I want to say thank you. Thank you for listening. Um, it's taken me a long time to be proud of who I am. And I hope in some very small way that something that I said resonates with you and gives you hope or gives you the will, the desire to just make the one change that you've been thinking about making. I hope I've
Mhm.
given you strength and I hope I've given you some confidence.
Thank you, Stacey.
You're
Thanks again for
welcome.
being on the podcast, for your vulnerability, for your insights, sharing your story. And I'm so happy that you chose this path. And I'm so happy to hear and see where you are today.
Thank you.
And
I really appreciate it. I'm still
yeah, thank
like
you.
it's still I'm still very thoughtful and careful sometimes I think about what I say, but perhaps there's just still the lawyer in me being just a little bit measured, but it's been great. And I really, really, truly appreciate the opportunity to be able to share my story with you. And like I said, hopefully somewhere out there, a little light bulb has gone off, a little beacon of hope is out there for somebody who's going to be like, yeah, okay, I can get up tomorrow and I can give it a shot.
I love it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.